Thank you, sir. All right, thanks everyone for coming out. Before we get started, Dana was recently named the U.S. Youth Soccer Volunteer of the Year for 2023, so let's give a little round of applause. So yeah, thanks for everyone for coming out. Obviously our 50th anniversary at Gillette. Really nice setting for us all to get together. And I think seeing the seats fill up, it really makes me feel good that so many of you have taken a day out of your weekend to come out and try and educate yourself and learn a bit more about the game to hopefully make better environments for your players, because that's what we're all here for. We all want to have good experiences for our players, and so again, taking time out of your busy schedules, your weekends to come out here and try and learn something, try and maybe take a nugget or two away from today to apply to your own environment is really important and special. So today we're talking about developing Omnipercipient players, which hopefully that buzzword kind of got the seats filled a bit more. Just to introduce myself, as Dana did already, I'm Peter Motzenbecker. Michael and I, we've been with Massachusetts Youth Soccer for less than a year. Tommy is the technical director. We both came into MYSA with kind of very different backgrounds. Michael's been around the game a lot longer than I. He's a former international player. But I've been in Massachusetts for about 10 years, just coaching at various levels and with various amount of players. I don't want to spend too long on us because it's not about us. So just to start, we're going to watch a quick clip about, this is Thiago Alcantara from Liverpool, my favorite team and one of my favorite players. So all I want you to do is just observe what he does, right, throughout this clip. So obviously a really lovely bit of skill there at the end, but there's so much that goes into that single moment that happens before it, right? So when we talk about a situation like that, we have to think about all the steps that go into performing that action before it actually happens. So the word before was omnipercipient, which essentially means gathering information through scanning. So what I want you to do before we kind of move along is talk to the person next to you for maybe a minute. I'll keep you on the clock. And what's your definition of scanning? I hear coaches a lot say, check your shoulders. That's a favorite. So what does scanning actually mean? Okay, so take a minute, talk with the person next to you.
Is that the mic on?
Mine is.
The more we can engage them in the conversation, the thought process, the better it is.
All right, we're into added time here. So start wrapping up your conversations. All right. Any brave soul out there want to give us their definition? Yeah, go ahead. Okay, yeah, I love that. Okay, so the ability to attain information. Okay. Chad, you wanted to? Quick observation? Okay. Okay. Yeah, those are both, I like those both. This is the definition we came up with. It loads. Give you a second to read that. So especially in the youth game, we see players that are very ball-oriented in what they're looking at. Obviously, as players get a bit older, they start to understand that there's more to the field than just the ball. At certain ages, we don't care if they notice anything else other than the ball. But in general, players are very ball-oriented in what they're looking at. So scanning is almost something we have to really get into kids, get into our players at young age groups to get them into the habit of looking around them, because there's so many other things that they need to understand on the field than just where the ball is. I highlighted the word perceiving there because the perception part of it is a huge aspect to scanning, right? So there's two different parts to scanning that we'll talk about a bit later, but perceiving is maybe the most important part. So again, scanning, omnipercipient, the awareness of everything, right? But when we think about it, so I just said about the ball, we have to be aware of many other things on the field, right? So you're a player here. You have to be aware of where the ball is, like we talked about, right? You have to be aware of where your teammates are. You have to be aware of where the opposition is. The relative space, right? It's very dynamic. Space is very dynamic based on where your teammates are, where the opposition is, where the ball is. You have some maybe static reference points like the goals and the lines. Those are more fixed. And again, there's other very dynamic things like space, teammates, opposition, and the ball. So these are all reference points for our players to make decisions, okay? The more they're able to take in, right, the better the decision's going to be because they have more awareness. They have more awareness of what's around them. The more information you have in any situation, the better decision you're going to make. But in a game, everything's moving very quickly. It's hard to maybe identify the moments that you need to scan, right? There's going to be some times where you're not going to want to scan because certain things are happening on the field. There's going to be times where you're going to have the opportunities. This is a clip of Martin Odegaard, plays for Arsenal. He has been in the spotlight since I think the age of 15. He went to Real Madrid when he was that age, I believe. One of his best attributes is his ability to scan at the right moments, the exact right moments. So watch this clip real quick. See if you've got to identify the moments that he is trying to attain different information on the field other than the ball. So it'll play again for you. Okay. Again, anyone wanna give a thought on when they saw him scanning? A moment. Okay, right before he received the ball? Yeah, perfect. It's one. When he was dribbling? Yeah, when he was in possession, for sure. Anyone else? Say that again? Yeah. Yeah, okay.
Super early on, too, before the defensive play, right as the player in the ball passed him, he saw a bunch of space behind him as well.
Okay, good. Someone back there was saying something? No? Okay. Yeah, so lots of different moments. And Martin Odegaard, there's studies of Premier League level players. His scanning frequency is one of the highest. Don't know the exact number. I think it's he scans every 1.2 seconds, I think, or 1.2 seconds between his scans, which is a good rate. So, in this clip, we see him scan immediately after his teammate takes a touch, right? Which is an important part, right? Immediately after a teammate takes a touch. In between touches of a player, and then obviously once the ball is played, after he picks up the trajectory of the ball going towards him, that's when he wants to take his last little scan. So it's important that he takes his moments to scan immediately after a teammate touches the ball, because if he does it before the teammate makes that touch and creates that little bit of separation between the ball and the foot, right? If he takes that scan at that point, while the teammate is still making a decision on what he's going to do, if he looks away and the ball starts traveling towards him, he's not going to be able to pick up that trajectory of the ball. And it might be a misplaced pass. It might be that a defender steps in, right? So he's gathering information when there's not an opportunity for him to be engaging with the ball. So we'll watch again with some annotations in here. So Jesus there created a little bit of separation. Ball's traveling, so he's scanning again. Again, Vieira take a touch there, create some separation, and immediately right before he receives the ball, he scans. So that's about a second and a half, and he scans 4 times in that space of time, right? Again, gathering information. Okay. So we've talked about information, right? The need to take in information. Science tells us that light hits everyone's eyes at the same speed, right? At the same time. So we can all take in the same sights, the same information, but obviously how we process that information is completely different, right? It's based on a lot of different things. So put yourselves in the shoes of a novice player in the situation that Odegaard was just in, right? He's playing 11v11, Premier League level game, okay? So put yourself in those shoes right now. I'm going to show you a list of letters. They're going to be in groups of 4. I'm going to give you 4 seconds to remember as many. I'll give you 5 seconds to remember as many. You know what? I'll give you 10 seconds because I'm feeling generous. I'm going to give you 10 seconds to try and remember as many of the letters as you can. Okay? Okay, what information did we get? Anyone see anything?
Yeah. I got Lally, Gabe. I the first four.
Okay. Okay. Anyone see a pattern? Okay, this time I'm going to give you 5 seconds, and I'll hold you to it this time. I'm going to give you a little bit more information. So some of the letters are going to be color-coded. Okay? So you're going to have a bit more information. So put yourself in, well, maybe me as a player in Odegaard's position. Oh. Okay, what do we see? Okay, so now you had a bit more information, okay? There was more patterns that you could see emerging because I was able to give you just a color difference, right? So who saw all 5 leagues? So it was just La Liga, EPL, Bundesliga, Serie A, Ligue 1, the top 5 leagues in Europe. I think they're still accurate based on coefficients. But if we go back, those are the same letters. They're a bit scrambled. So if you're a novice player in Odegaard's situation, the information that he receives, right, the light that he receives, he's going to be able to go here first. But for everyone else, it might look like that, right? So over time, we have to develop perception through pattern recognition, right? The experiential learning, so Odegaard's been put in that experience thousands of times, right? Again, he signed for Real Madrid when he was 15, okay? So at that point, he was already a very good player on a very good trajectory in his development. So he was already at an elite level, and it still remains at an elite level from a scanning perspective, right? So pattern recognition, experiential learning, so game-like situations. And then a big one as well is external and internal feedback, right? So I, as a coach, right, I have to help my players, give them feedback, right? And they're on a feedback loop as well. They're going to get information about, well, they're going to give themselves kind of feedback on whether they made the right decision in a certain moment. So of all of those, and it's a long-term process, but help our players develop perception, which is using the information that we receive, the light that we receive into our eyes, going to the back of our brain, using that information to kind of break it down and make sense of it. But all that's great. Watching clips of Martin Odegaard is great, okay? But most of us work with grassroots players, right? And so we need to kind of frame how we're going to develop perception and develop scanning skills for a grassroots player. So there's 2 ways to kind of break this idea down, right? Scanning and perception. They work hand in hand, but they're 2 different things. So scanning is the execution of that check your shoulder, right? Take a look around you, okay? Scanning is the execution of that idea. Everyone can do that. Everyone can scan. It's a learned behavior. Perception is all about taking that information in, processing it, and making a decision based on that, right? And again, what I see as a player is probably going to be very different than Michael. He played at a higher level than me, right? How many caps for Cameroon? 4 caps for Cameroon. I have 0 caps for anything above college. So very different levels, but if you put Michael and I in the same situation, I'm willing to bet that he's going to be able to process information probably better than I can and make a better decision based on it. We might do the same actions in terms of scanning, right? But his ability, because of the levels he's played at, is probably going to be a bit better than me. So to develop our players' ability to scan and perceive different things on the field, it's good if we put them into situations within a practice that have position, some positional relevance, not necessarily saying, okay, you're a center back, so you're going to play center back, but positional and spatial relevance in the sense that I'm a player, that is my defender, right? That's my opposition. Some context within the game, right? And context being there's opposition, you have teammates, you maybe have goals, some other reference points. And then some decision making that's based on perception and cues, which comes from some of the coach and some of the players as well, right? So your coaching points in a certain situation can be, if you see this, maybe think about this, right? Those types of perception and cue-based coaching methods. This is a study from a Norwegian professor that works a lot on scanning within, he kind of looks at different levels of the game, and he's for about 20 years, he's been gathering data on scanning from individual players. But this in particular is based on activities within a session. Okay, so he went to the Eredivisie in the Netherlands, and he looked at scanning behaviors of players in certain situations, certain activities. So obviously the highest scans per second that we might see are in a game. So he recorded just about 0.45 scans per second. 0.45 scans per second. And you can see it goes down small-sided games, right? So now we're talking about actually within sessions, small-sided games, possession activities, just under 0.25 scans per second. Passing patterns, just over 0.1 scan per second. And then rondos, which I know many of us love to use, I think is at 0.03 scans per second, right? Which makes sense based on the structure and organization of that. So if we want our players to take in more information, to be better scanners, obviously we need to put them in those situations, right? I think when we first had a discussion about the topic that we were going to deliver here, I think it was on Instagram, and I saw a one-on-one coach delivering a scanning exercise, and I thought to myself, I don't know if that's scanning. So this is kind of what it looked like, and I'm sure many of you have seen it before. So a player runs to a cone, another person holds up a color, asks the player to shout out the color, right? So Ivan here, going around the cones, yelling out blue and orange as he plays the ball. And for some reason is going around different cones and all sorts of... So he's not bad at it. It's the first time I've put him in that situation. There's certainly times where he's scanning very awkwardly. He has a fixed reference point here, but even when he's going this side, he's still like doing this. So there's certainly technical aspects to his actual behavior of scanning that needs to improve. But the issue here is that he's not making a decision based on what he's doing. He's going around that cone, he's going up to it, okay, blue, okay, play the ball back, right? Going around the other side, oh, orange, play the ball back. So yeah, he's doing the scanning, he's checking his shoulder, but what decision is he making? He's not. So we made an adjustment. Okay. So now there's two players. They're going to start at the same time. The player in front is going to run in front of the orange cones there. He's going to receive a ball. At the same time, the player behind him is going to go around either one of those goals, okay, and he's going to defend that goal. So now the player has to take in some information about where that player is and then make a decision on where he's going to turn and what goal he's going to play into. So he took a little look, turned, finished. And again, this is the first time that these players have been put in this context. So there's certainly coaching points that they need to be given in terms of, even just their behavior of scanning and how they execute it. But they're being put in a situation where they have to make a decision at the same time, right? And part of, at least my methodology, is that we need to be putting players in situations where they're not just executing behaviors, right? They're not just passing a ball back and forth, but they're making a decision at the same time. So again, here, he's receiving a ball, he's checking, he's seeing where the defender is, he's knowing, okay, I need to make a decision on what goal I'm playing into, so he's making a turn based on that information, and he's finishing based on where that information is bringing him. We saw before that the rondo had the lowest scanning frequency. Right? But how many of us use rondos all the time? Yeah, they're a pretty useful tool. They're a useful tool for a lot of things. I use them all the time. Okay? I gave us a talk not too long ago about skill acquisition. Again, based on my methodology, putting players in rondos to develop passing is excellent because you can manipulate the space based on the needs of your players. They're still making a decision. They're still executing a pass, right? So rondos are great for that. If you're talking about a game model, it's great for working on player actions and sub principles. The team that I coach, one of our player actions is we want to provoke the opposition towards us. So a rondo is great for that. So in this situation, I might tell the blue players to take 2 touches to provoke the defender towards them to then play out. So rondos have a lot of, this is not a diss on rondos. Rondos are great. Rondos are great if you utilize them correctly, right? Not every exercise you're going to be working on scanning, and that's absolutely fine. But how can we maybe adjust rondos? So here's a quick clip of a 4v1 rondo. The boys were brave enough to come out in the cold and help me record this. So again, 4v1, there's lots of different things you could say about this. I mean, the defender's getting run all over the place because maybe the space is a bit big, so organizational things that maybe we need to look at, right? But the players on the outside, they know where everyone is, right? They have all the reference points. Everyone's in the same spot. They're still making decisions based on where the defender is, but everything's in front of them. They don't have to scan. So their decision-making is based solely on what they see in front of them. So how can we maybe make an adjustment to that? Again, the rondo, 0.03 scans per second, right? There's no real adjustment of their body orientation, which is a huge part of scanning, right? Obviously, receiving on the half turn or coming in to collect a ball on the half turn is going to be a lot more beneficial to you in terms of taking information than if you're running backwards to your center back as a center midfielder and receiving like this. So body orientation, and again, there's no movement from the players on the outside. So how can we adjust these two things? The scans per second, the body orientation, how can we adjust those? So I thought about it, and I said, well, can we keep the rondo idea? Can we keep a 4v1 rondo? But can we have players active in different ones? So the yellow players here are now playing in 2 different rondos. So this player is playing in this rondo and this one. This one's playing in this one and this one, and that one, and this guy in here, All right? So now they obviously have to be looking, those yellow players have to be looking at two different fields. Is it a perfect game-like situation? No, but it's an enhancement of a rondo that allows for the players to up that scanning frequency. The boys do an okay job of this. It's their first time going through it. There's lots of scattered balls, which isn't a problem. But here we go. So watch the players in in green. Again, there's a bit of chaos, for sure. There's a bit of chaos. It's the first time doing it, so I won't hold it against them. But you can see certain moments, right? Certain moments from this player in particular, this one a bit, this one here, where they were now more conscious of, okay, I need to look here. I need to look here. I need to know what's going on in my other square, okay? And over time, it's going to build their habit of doing that. It's going to allow them to take in more information. And then they're going to start making better and better decisions in that moment. Those would probably be maybe center midfielders. There's variances on positional kind of scanning frequencies. Center midfielders are going to be the highest. I think Xavi, when he played at Barcelona, he was scanning 0.61 scans per second, right? One of the best midfielders of all time, taking a lot of information, right? That's going to, I think forwards are the lowest in terms of their scanning frequency. So you have to think about what situation do you want to put your players in? What players are you working with? How can you kind of alter your sessions to put them in the situations that are going to translate to the game, right? The more that we strip things back from the game, if we go all the way back to this one, the gaps between the information that this player is getting right here to his game day experience is going to be massive, right? There's no opposition here, so he doesn't have to make a decision based on opposition. There's no teammates here, so he doesn't have to make a decision based on teammates. There's no direction for him to play to, so he has to think about that when he goes to a game day. So that transferable information, those gaps are massive. But as we go forward, when we get to here, okay, yeah, it was a bit chaotic, but these players, right, the more that they're put in those situations, the less information gap that they're going to have, right? So again, the yellow players, their scanning, their body shape improved a bit, right? We could still work on skill acquisition in this, right? We could still talk about players, about their passing technique in this situation, how they receive a ball in this situation, but they're making a decision based on where that defender is. And we could still talk about our principles of play as well. So when we talk about our coaching, right? So those are all organizational aspects of our sessions, our activities. Putting players in those situations is great because they're gonna, we've all heard before that the game's the teacher, right? So putting them in those situations it's gonna put them in more scanning situations. It's gonna give them more information that they can maybe transfer to the game. But we're coaches, right? We're out on the field to coach and help our players and give our players support. So we have to think about what is our role as a coach in this situation. So we talked about before, Omnipercipient, the awareness of everything, right? That awareness exists within a framework, right? It exists within a moment and exists within a situation, okay? A player taking in all information, that's never going to happen, and it's not exactly what you want from them, right? A center midfielder doesn't need to worry about if they're on the left side of center midfield and they receive a ball from their right fullback, maybe they don't need to worry about where the left fullback is at that given moment. So you have to take in the necessary information and be able to process it. Let's look at Thiago again. So try and look and understand maybe what he's looking for, right? And maybe think about how he makes his decision at the end to do his little shoulder drop between those two defenders. Again, you can see him, right, in the moments we talked about before. Teammate just takes a touch, he's looking, right? The ball's traveling towards him, he's looking, okay? At the end, I think he takes a first look backwards to see where it's Che Adams, kind of on his left shoulder. I'm not sure who the other Southampton player is, but he takes a little glance, is able to drop his shoulder and go, right? And then obviously, he's then able to look, see where Harvey Elliott is on the other side, and ping a ball out to him. Right? In that moment, again, he's looking for the distance of the opposition players. He's looking for the distance of the teammates from him. He's looking for that relative space around him, determined by these two things. And he's looking for spacing between teammates and opposition, right? Especially at the end, he's looking, okay, Harvey Elliott's in a wide area. Southampton fullback is relatively tucked in. I can play a ball out to him. Right? So maybe if we want to try and put Thiago in more of those situations within practice, little Thiago anyway, not 32-year-old Thiago that hasn't played a game in 36 games. Maybe we can put him in a situation like this. I think in that game, Liverpool at that time were kind of playing like a double pivot. So he was probably like a 6 and 8. Fabinho was in there as well. So if we put him in a positional rondo like this, again, going back to our rondo, right? But now there's a bit more game context. So we have two center backs at the top. The four has the ball. We have a center forward at the bottom. And then our midfield three, the opposition midfield three. So we're looking at our 6 here. So as a coach, what information can I try and get to that player, right? What can I talk to them about? What coaching points can I give him to help him understand the situation that he's in? Okay, so 6, maybe as the ball's traveling from the 4 to the 5 or the 5 to the 4, you need to take a look, right? And then what are you looking for? Well, maybe you need to look at the distance between you and the opposition 8. Maybe you need to look at whether there's pressure on the 4 and 5. That's going to dictate kind of where your movements are. If the 8 steps out, you might need to open up a bit wider. I need to look at the opposition 6 and 10. If I receive the ball, do I have space to turn into? I have to look at where my teammate, the number 9, is. If he's all the way over here, right, that's going to dictate how many touches maybe I need to take, or my next decision in order to play the ball into him. I maybe need to see what the space looks like between the 6 on the opposition team and our number 9. If that 6 is really deep, close to our 9, then maybe I need to take a few extra touches to try and get that 6 to come close me down so I can open up space for the 9, all right? So spacing between the lines of players, spacing between me and a teammate, me and the opposition, all important parts to kind of creating what-if scenarios for your players, right? Giving them kind of cues of what they need to visualize, visual cues to work off of. And again, we talked before about feedback, right? Putting players in situations where they have to have some sort of feedback loop. So as a coach, right, after I see a player make a decision, I have to be conscious about how I address that player, right? If I want my player to think about what their thought process was, I need to ask them some questions, right? These are just basic ones that we can go with. Hey, 6, what did you see when you were opening up? Right? A simple question, but it gets you to understand what they were thinking, what they saw, what information they took in. We're all going to see things differently. A coach on the sideline in a game is going to see things a lot differently than a center midfielder who's in the middle of things receiving a ball. Right? So understanding what they saw, their perception of a situation, helps you as a coach relate better to what their understanding is. Okay? And it helps you build and provide feedback to hopefully allow them to make better decisions in the future. So when we're talking about, we saw this before, developing perception, it's all about pattern recognition, right? The more that players see something, the more that any of us experience something, the more we're going to be able to recognize it later, right? I think that's why when people see clouds, they're like, I see that. I see an elephant, right? It's not an elephant, but your mind goes there, right? Because you're used to seeing that shape, right? We see faces in different things. Oh, well, I see faces all the time, so if I see something that vaguely looks like a face at some point, I see a face in that wood grain, right? We as humans rely on patterns to kind of survive. Again, experiential and external feedback. Oh. Right, so it's all about providing players cues and visuals, right? It's all about putting players in more game-like situations, more game-like activities, so that they can not only execute the scanning, but take in information as they're doing it, right? And apply that information. Make decisions based on that information. And again, external feedback, right? Our role as coaches is to provide our players some sort of information, right? We want to give them more ideas. We want to give them more information that they can utilize when they're in the game. Okay, that wraps things up for us. Does anyone have any questions? Yeah, go ahead.
Positional rondo, is that an actual drill? And what was the intention?
Yeah, the positional rondo? Yeah.
Obviously, Steven, is the point to get the ball tonight, or what's the point of the drill?
You could use it for all sorts of different things, right? You could use it for midfield rotation, right? Maybe if you want your 8 to receive the ball here, maybe you need to talk to your 6 about the different movements that they can do to manipulate this 10 to allow your 8 to receive on a diagonal, or maybe if you want, you can use, if you want your 6 to come in here to bounce the ball to maybe create space for your 10 here because it drags the 8 away. There's all sorts of different things. I mean, an exercise is an exercise. The organization is the organization. What you want to get out of it can vary significantly, right? But yeah, you could certainly utilize this for a number of different things. It's not solely for scanning, and I wouldn't just go to a session and only talk to a player about make sure you check your shoulder, make sure you check your shoulder, right? We're going to work on different principles as well in that moment. Yeah.
There was a lot there about like practice, but I know this is a most set answer. But the game day, where do you think the right pitch is between like technical warm-up, like a 4v1 on no touches, versus just putting in play? Like either you 10 team or quite a game day, or put them in 2 easy games. Like, but I don't know where there's a balance there somewhere. I assume not having the game ready, but if you're looking at this topic in particular, is that just throw them into a game scenario on game day?
Yeah, I mean, I think with training, with warm-ups before games, what are we trying to prepare them for? We're trying to prepare them for the game, right? We want to put them as close to game-like situations as possible. In training, you could strip things down a bit more. You're going to strip some things away from the actual game to work on specific moments. But I think in terms of your warm-up, right, again, they're about to play a game. So you might want to start with a small technical exercise to get them going. But at some point, you do want to put them in a game-like situation before that kickoff, because you don't want that first experience of a game to be the game, right? So 2v2s, they're making decisions, right? They might not necessarily be scanning because there's maybe not a lot of information that they need to take in. So slightly larger numbers is going to force them to maybe take in more information and perceive that, and force them to scan a bit more. But it sounds like you're on the right track.
I,
Here you go.
no, he's actually raising his hand
Oh.
first. Go ahead.
I have one question for you. So your rondo where players switch squares and everything is a little bit creative. It's nice. Do you have a bank of exercises like this that we could access to work except in our training sessions? So
You know what, you can, here, I'm just going to direct you to my email so you can reach out to me, and I can send you some things. Yeah, again, when we're thinking about exercises to create, we want to make sure that there's more relevance to the game than just, okay, I want to work on my player's scanning ability, all right? Like that situation, again, if you were there, you would have saw that we did it for about 5 minutes, because it was just a thing after practice where I needed to get some clips of exercise ideas I had. But if I were doing that, there would certainly be more coaching points than just, hey, I want you to be able to scan, right? So when you're thinking about making your exercises, your activities, you have to think about the coaching points that you want to get across to your players, and then design your activity around that, right? So activities can look very similar, they can look very different, but it's all based on what you want to get out of that moment and the coaching points you want to get across to your players.
I coach high school level, and that's one of the worst things when somebody puts their head down and tries to take out two defenders because they don't see what else is open. So helping them with that would be big.
So coaches, obviously, here in this room, you have probably coaches that are coaching at the college level, high school level, club level, different performance environments. So my question to all of you is, what do you do in your environment to influence players' behavior, player actions in regards to scanning? Maybe so for 3-5 minutes, whoever's right next to you, exchange a little bit some ideas. What's your favorite activity and why you're using it? What's your favorite activity to improve scanning frequency? What's the activity and why? Give you 5 minutes. Whoever's right next to you, just share with your thoughts, and then we'll get back. Hold on. Hold on. All right. All right, coaches. Coaches. All right, good. So, as I mentioned earlier, obviously we have coaches from different environments. So, if there's any way we can get a sample from a college coach in your environment, I'm pretty sure there are a couple of college coaches here. In your environment, what's your favorite activity and why? Anybody? College? Yes?
I do a 2v2 with 4 neutrals on the outside.
Okay.
So your positioning is, based on where the opponent is, where your teammate is, and you're staying out of the passing lanes of the players on the outside. So there is a little bit of that playing 360.
Okay.
And then when the defenders win it, now they're the team with the ball. So it's a little bit more like the game.
Okay. So non-directional rondo. Okay. Fair enough. High school. Who's coaching high school? Obviously train four times a week. But yes, please give us an example. Say again? Okay. Handball with larger numbers. Directional, non-directional?
Typically with larger numbers, just going
Okay.
in one direction,
Okay.
but just to at least give them the basis of scanning
Okay.
and figuring out where they need to be.
So very good. Could be 8 versus 8, 7 versus 7, end line. Numbers up, even numbers, but constantly you have to start thinking before you receive a ball, scan, and then obviously who's the next option based on space and teammates and opponents available. Very good. I like that. Anybody, club, high performance, MLS Next, ECNLs, town, doesn't matter. Anyone wants to give an example? Yes, please, coach.
A simple one on very easy. You could also do it on rain days rather than canceling practice.
Okay.
Do a video session.
Okay.
Watch an EPL match with the target of modeling yourself after these guys. I think
Okay.
when we were kids playing, the availability of high-level soccer to watch wasn't big.
Okay.
Our kids are watching more of it, giving them a classroom-like time of like, pause it. What just happened? What did he just do? So like,
Okay. Yeah.
for a whole match, full team
Okay.
to watch. Think so.
So as an additional tool, video analysis is great, but now can we find ways so that players can go through experiential learning? I wanted to just take you back to this slide so that you know that you have different options: possession, rondos, functional, directional. It's just one opportunity. You have small-sided games, 4-goal game, 6-goal game, even numbers, 4 versus 4, 5 versus 5, 3 versus 4, numbers up, numbers down. Creates, once again, a lot of opportunities for these players to go through experiential learning, okay? Obviously, the games as well, larger games, 9 versus 9, 11 versus 11. What's the benefit playing big game? You have more opportunities? Yes or no? Yes? Okay, but how many players most of the time will receive the ball? See again? A couple, key players, center mids, most likely. So they have more repetition than others. So there's no right and wrong. If you balance it, here and there do some big games, here and the small sided games, 4 versus 5, even numbers, uneven numbers, that works great. Or, once again, the starting point is who? Who's the starting point? The players that you have in front of you. U10s, give an example, 2 versus 2 U10s. If they're U14, U15, they're technically a bit more developed, so obviously you can challenge them more, go larger numbers. So once again, understand who's in front of you, and then based on that, you can use different ideas to develop and increase the scanning frequency. Okay? So I just wanted to take you back to that.
Love it.
Any other questions, comments, thoughts?
I have a comment. I like two comments on your rondo that you turn the 4v2, you turn into a 2v1+2, where the players had to turn around.
Yep.
You know, when I watched the video of it, really, what I think this is awesome. Really, the players that were in the middle playing in 2 rondos, their life was actually pretty easy because you're just going to turn around and play the other rondo. It was really their teammates who now were in trouble because, you know, a second ago, their teammate to their left was playing their rondo. Well, he's gone. He's turned to the other side. So I noticed like the ball gets passed from basically playing the other one. So I think that's a great example. I just wanted to comment that.
And just to piggyback on that, I think sometimes chaos in a training session is not a bad thing. Sometimes they're gonna start thinking and reflecting on it, and then obviously you as a coach bring that same activity back the next session, and you're gonna see suddenly they're gonna start improving. They're starting to recognizing some cues, and then it's gonna get much smoother. So it's nothing wrong here to have some chaos, as long as they can reflect, as long as you give them some cues, so that they increase the scanning frequency. Okay.
Yeah, I can relate to that as well because that's actually me. So when I was in that situation, there's a few times where I looked over to this player and he was checking the other way. I was like, oh, can't play there. But on his part, he maybe needs to try and develop his body shape a bit more so he can see both of the squares a bit better. But yeah, I mean, So I developed it for these players as maybe center midfielders, but certainly these players, right? These are your maybe external players, your fullbacks, your wide players, wingers, right? So, yeah, they certainly need to take in information and scan to see where the other players as well.
When are you sort of deliberately incorporating the word and idea of scanning versus like I would assume at the younger ages, like we were kind of talking about, if you start getting grade 3 or grade 2 and sort of thinking of your first drill, like all they're going to be doing is moving their head, not necessarily thinking. When do you start progressing into from subliminal to maybe just right out in front of you?
Grade 3 is what age? My child is 3 years old, so I have a while to go.
Sorry, 9.
9?
Yeah.
Okay. So I think you also need, like Michael said before, you need to think about the players in front of you, right? Younger players are going to be, what do you want them to do? You only want them to really play with the ball, right? You don't, like in a game, if I'm coaching a U9 player, I don't care if they pass the ball really. Maybe a higher level player, I want them to maybe start to make those decisions on, okay, if I have a defender, maybe I need to pass the ball. But you want to encourage the players to be in love with the ball as much as possible. So their reference point should be the ball, right? They don't have to worry so much about scanning and finding, kind of taking all these different pictures. And you're also working on their technical ability to be able to play out of tight situations. So maybe you want them to get in tight situations to then have to work their way out. So maybe their scanning's after they receive the ball already. I think maybe the transition is maybe that U12, U13, where, okay, they're starting to make that transition from a individual player kind of development aspect to where do they fit within a team setting, but not necessarily pigeonholed in a certain position or anything like that. But yeah, I would say that age group is maybe when you want to start to kind of consciously as a coach introduce the ideas of, hey, we need to start to visualize where other things are on the field and here are maybe some moments that you can take those looks.
Coaches obviously would love to continue, but I was constantly scanning and it's 10 a.m. So we have to stop. But once again, you have our contact information. And please, anytime, please don't hesitate to reach out to us and we'll continue that conversation. All right?